The galactic Concordat prided itself on 3,000 years of absolute peace. Their mighty stations, gleaming with crystalline spires and gardens that spiraled through zero gravity, had never known the touch of weapons fire. Their ships, works of art that sailed between the stars, carried neither shields nor armor. The very concept of warfare had become foreign to them, relegated to academic studies of primitive species and cautionary tales told to children. Admiral John Way stood at the viewport of humanity's embassy on New Venus, watching the Concordat's ships drift past like elegant dancers. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering focused entirely on beauty and efficiency. None of them had seen her true face yet. None of them understood what slept beneath the embassy's polished surfaces. "Admiral," her eye assistant's voice whispered in her neural implant, "the Concordat's High Council has arrived for the inspection." Way straightened her simple black uniform, unadorned except for a single silver pin shaped like Earth's ancient olive branch. "Very well. Let's give them their tour." The High Council members emerged from their shuttle like exotic birds, their ceremonial robes rippling with programmable fabric that shifted colors with their movements. First Speaker Lysandra, a tall centaurian with feathered hair that floated around her head like a corona, approached Way with extended hands. "Admiral John Way," she said, her translator rendering her musical language into crisp standard. "We are honored to perform this final inspection of your embassy before its official opening." We took the offered hands and bowed slightly. "The honor is ours." First Speaker. "Earth welcomes this opportunity to join the galactic community." The tour proceeded exactly as planned. Way guided them through the public areas, the cultural exchange centers, the diplomatic offices, the gardens designed to showcase Earth's biodiversity. The council members cooed over the ancient bonsai trees and marveled at the holographic displays of Earth's oceans. Everything was perfect, peaceful, exactly what they expected. Then First Speaker Lysandra asked the question Way had been waiting for. "Admiral, our sensors detect unusual power signatures from the lower levels, yet these areas are not on our tour schedule." Way's smile remained diplomatic. "Ah, yes. Those would be our backup systems. Quite extensive, I'm afraid. A quirk of human engineering. We like redundancy." Redundancy. Council member Vax, a crystalline being who communicated through light pulses, flickered with confusion. "Your power systems exceed those of our largest cities. Surely this is excessive for an embassy." "Perhaps," Way acknowledged. "But humanity has learned to be thorough." She could see the subtle shifts in their postures, the way their diplomatic masks looked just slightly. They had reviewed Earth's application to join the Concordat, of course. They had seen the sanitized version of human history, carefully edited to emphasize cooperation and downplay conflict. But they weren't fools. They had noticed the gaps. "Admiral," Lysandra said carefully, "some council members have expressed concerns about Earth's historical development. Your species achieved faster-than-light travel remarkably quickly after your industrial revolution. Some suggest this indicates a focus on military technology that might be incompatible with Concordat values." Way had rehearsed this moment countless times. The Concordat values peace above all else, yes. On Earth, we have a saying, "Sigus pacem, parabellum." If you want peace, prepare for war. The council members stiffened. War was not a word spoken in polite company. "But surely," Lysandra pressed, "now that you've joined us, such preparations are unnecessary. The Concordat has maintained peace for 3 millennia." We turned to the viewport, gesturing at the gleaming ships outside. "They're beautiful, aren't they? Like jewels against the stars. Tell me, First Speaker, in all those 3,000 years of peace, have you ever wondered why you've never encountered any truly aggressive species?" "I don't understand." "Statistics, First Speaker. The galaxy is vast. In 3,000 years, you should have encountered at least one civilization that chose violence over cooperation. And yet you haven't. Doesn't that strike you as odd?" The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken implications. Wei turned back to them, her smile now tinged with something older, harder. "Humanity would be honored to join the Concordat," she said softly. "We believe in peace as deeply as you do, but we believe in it because we understand its cost. What sleeps beneath this embassy isn't a weapon. First speaker. It's a shield, one that has stood longer than your Concordat has existed. A shield." Vax flickered rapidly. "Against what?" Wei's gaze moved past them, out to the stars. "Let us pray you never have to find out." The tour concluded shortly after, the council members departing with forced smiles and worried whispers. Wei watched their shuttle disappear into the darkness, knowing that soon they would begin deep scans of the embassy, trying to pierce its secrets. Let them try. The technology that slumbered beneath their feet had been old when humanity first looked up at the stars and dreamed of flying. She placed her hand against the viewport, feeling the subtle vibration of ancient machines cycling beneath the embassy's pristine surfaces. "Soon," she whispered, both to herself and to what waited below. "They'll understand soon enough." In her neural implant, alerts began to flash. Something was stirring in the dark between the stars, something that had waited a very, very long time. The shield would be needed sooner than anyone expected. 3 days after the council's inspection, the anomaly appeared. At first, it was nothing more than a whisper in the void, a slight distortion in the quantum foam that separated normal space from the deeper darkness between galaxies. The Concordat's sensors, designed for navigation and astronomical research, barely noticed it, but humanity's systems, ever vigilant, began to wake. Deep beneath the embassy, Admiral Wei stood in a chamber that officially didn't exist. Holographic displays surrounded her, showing readouts that would have been incomprehensible to the Concordat's finest scientists. They tracked something that should have been impossible. A wave of nothing, spreading across space like ripples in a pond. "It's happening exactly as the archives predicted," Dr. Sarah Chen said, her fingers dancing through the holographic data. The physicist had arrived from Earth the previous day, officially as a cultural attaché. In reality, she was one of the few people alive who could read the warnings left by their ancestors. "Time to emergence?" Wei asked, her voice steady, despite the weight settling in her stomach. 48 hours, maybe less. They're getting better at hiding their approach. Sarah's face was illuminated by the soft blue glow of ancient equations. "The Concordat's going to notice soon. Their ships are starting to pick up gravitational echoes." As if summoned by her words, Wei's communicator chimed. First speaker Lyssandra's face appeared, her feathers rippling with barely contained anxiety. "Admiral, our scientists have detected unusual spatial disturbances. They're requesting access to your sensor arrays, given their extensive nature." Wei exchanged a glance with Sarah. "Of course, first speaker. I'll have my staff coordinate with your team immediately." The lie felt heavy on her tongue, but there would be time for truth later, if they survived. After ending the call, Wei activated the embassy's secure channel to Earth. "Protocol Watchfire is in effect," she reported, requesting activation of the Sentinel network. The response was immediate. Across human space, hidden installations began to power up. Beneath peaceful colonies and trading posts, ancient machines stirred to life. The shield that humanity had maintained for millennia was about to be tested once again. In the Concordat's Grand Assembly, panic was spreading. Their sensors were now picking up massive gravitational distortions, spreading across their carefully mapped trade routes like cracks in glass. Ships reported navigation errors, communication delays, and strange shadows at the edge of their sensors. "This is unprecedented," High Scientist Vax declared, their crystalline form pulsing with agitation. "The fabric of space itself appears to be fracturing." First speaker Lysandra stood at the center of the assembly, her usual grace strained by fear. "What do the humans say?" "Their sensors must be detecting this as well. They claim to be analyzing the data," another council member reported. but their embassy has gone into some kind of lockdown. Energy readings from their lower levels are off the scale. Deep in those lower levels, Wei and her team watched as the Nothing Wave approached. The ancient displays showed what the Concordat couldn't see, the truth hidden behind the spatial distortions. They were not random anomalies or natural phenomena. They were footsteps. Something vast was walking between the stars. Signal from the Artemis station, Sarah reported suddenly. They're picking up the same patterns we saw in the archives. The entropy signatures match exactly. Wei closed her eyes briefly, remembering the lessons drummed into every child of Earth. The stories that other worlds had dismissed as myths or paranoia. How many? At least 3. Maybe more hiding in the gravitational wake. Sarah's voice shook slightly. They're bigger than the ones in the records. They always are. Wei opened her eyes, straightening her uniform. Send word to all human stations. Full activation protocols are now in effect. And get me a channel to the assembly. On her screen, the Nothing Wave continued to spread. Behind it, vast shapes began to take form. Things that had no right to exist in normal space. Geometries that hurt the mind to contemplate. The hungry ones were returning, just as humanity's ancestors had warned they would. When the channel to the assembly opened, Wei faced not just the council but representatives from hundreds of worlds. All of them demanded answers, their voices blending into a cacophony of fear and confusion. Honorable members of the Concordat, Wei's voice cut through the chaos. 3,000 years ago, your ancestors encountered a peaceful galaxy and built a civilization based on that peace, but they never asked why it was peaceful. She paused, letting the words sink in. They never knew about the war that made their peace possible. The assembly fell silent as Wei activated a holographic display. It showed images that had haunted humanity's dreams for millennia. Vast dark shapes tearing apart stars, whole worlds vanishing into geometrically impossible maws, and the weapons that had finally driven them back into the darkness between galaxies. Your ancestors didn't build weapons because they never needed to, Wei continued. Ours built them because we saw what was coming. We built them, hid them, maintained them through millennia of peace because we knew this day would come. The assembly erupted in shocked whispers as Wei's words sank in. Outside their windows, the stars were beginning to dim as something vast moved between them and the light. The shield that humanity has maintained isn't just technology, Wei said softly. It's a promise to stand guard, to remember what others chose to forget. And now, after 3,000 years, that shield must rise again. In the darkness beneath every human installation across the galaxy, ancient machines powered up fully for the first time in millennia. The shield was awakening, and with it, humanity's true purpose in the galaxy was about to be revealed. Whether the Concordat was ready or not, the long watch was about to end. The first attack came without warning. A Concordat passenger liner, carrying thousands of civilians through what had once been safe space, simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, transmitting routine updates about its journey. The next, there was nothing but a hole in reality where a ship had been. In the embassy's command center, Wei watched the sensor readings with grim recognition. Just like the archives described. They're hunting again. The hungry ones didn't feed on matter or energy. They fed on existence itself. Each victim didn't just die. They were erased from the fabric of space-time, becoming fuel for entities that should never have evolved in this universe. Multiple contacts, Sarah reported, her voice clinical despite the horror unfolding on her screens. They're moving faster than the models predicted. Adaptation rate is off the charts. Wei activated the emergency broadcast channel, connecting to every human installation simultaneously. This is Admiral Wei. Execute Protocol Aegis. Authorization Code. Thermopylae. Across the galaxy, hidden weapons platforms emerged from their millennia of dormancy. They didn't look like weapons. They appeared more like abstract sculptures, geometric shapes that hurt the eye to look at directly. They were humanity's answer to creatures that violated the laws of physics, weapons that did the same. The Concordat's assembly had devolved into chaos. Representatives from 100 worlds screamed for explanations, for protection, for something to stop the darkness that was consuming their ships. First Speaker Lysandra stood alone at the center, her feathers flat against her head in distress. Speaker, Wei's voice cut through the panic. Your people need to evacuate. Now, get everyone you can to the designated safe zones we're transmitting. Safe zones. Lysandra's voice shook. What makes them safe? Because that's where we've been hiding our teeth. The human installations were transforming. What had appeared to be simple embassies and trading posts were revealing their true nature. Fortress worlds built around technology so advanced it appeared magical to the Concordat sensors. In orbit around New Venus, the first battle of the new war began. A hungry one, its form a writhing mass of impossible angles, reached for another civilian ship. But this time, something reached back. The weapon platforms activated simultaneously, creating a web of distorted space-time that trapped the entity. For the first time in recorded history, a hungry one screamed, a sound that existed not in air, but in the quantum foam of space itself. Target locked, reported Captain Chen Lei from the platform's control center. Executing containment protocol. The platforms didn't fire beams or projectiles. Instead, they unfolded reality itself, creating a pocket universe around the hungry one, a prison built of warped physics and engineered paradoxes. The entity thrashed, its vast form trying to escape, but humanity had spent 3,000 years perfecting this trap. But it wasn't alone. More shapes were emerging from the darkness between stars, drawn by the struggle of their kin. They were learning, adapting, becoming more dangerous with each passing moment. Multiple breaches detected. Sarah's voice was tense. They're probing the network for weaknesses. Wei watched as the battle unfolded across multiple dimensions. The hungry ones were ancient and powerful, but humanity had prepared for this moment for 3,000 years. Every failed defense, every lost battle from the First War had been studied, analyzed, improved upon. Status of the evacuation, she demanded. Concordat ships are moving to the safe zones, but they're scattered. Their entire civilization was built without considering the need for rapid withdrawal. Of course it was. They had never needed to run before. A new alarm blared. One of the hungry ones had adapted to the containment field. It burst free in an explosion of tortured space-time, its form now even more incomprehensible than before. Direct hit on Platform 7, Sarah reported. Containment protocols failing across the sector. Wei's fingers flew across her console, activating secondary systems. Deploy the anchors. Deep beneath the surface of a dozen worlds, machines that had waited for millennia surged to life. They weren't weapons. They were something far more fundamental. The anchors were humanity's greatest achievement. Devices that could temporarily stabilize the laws of physics in a given region of space, forcing reality to behave normally. The effect on the hungry ones was immediate and devastating. Forced to exist in normal space-time, their impossible geometries began to collapse. They couldn't maintain their form in a universe that suddenly insisted on making sense. But the victory was temporary. The anchors could only operate for short periods before reality began to break down around them. And the hungry ones were already learning to adapt. New contacts. Sarah's voice was tight with tension. Much larger signatures, I think. I think these were what our ancestors faced in the First War. On the main display, vast shapes were taking form. Not just hole in reality now, but entire regions of space where the laws of physics simply ceased to exist. The hungry ones had sent their hunters first. Now their warriors were arriving. Wei opened a channel to all human forces. This is what we were built for. This is why we remembered when others chose to forget. Stand fast. Execute Protocol Omega on my mark. As she spoke, the Nadvekch of the new arrivals reached out with appendages of twisted space-time, trying to consume an entire star system in a single bite. The battle for existence itself was about to begin in earnest, and humanity's shield was the only thing standing between life and oblivion. The Concordat's Grand Assembly had been converted into a war room, a concept so foreign to them that they didn't even have a word for it in their languages. Representatives from 1,000 peaceful worlds watched in horror as humanity's true nature was revealed. Protocol Omega engage. Wei's voice echoed through the chamber. All units, execute quantum lock. The human installations weren't just defending. They were moving. Each fortress world activated ancient engines that shifted them through dimensional space, forming a battle line that stretched across the galactic arm. It was a strategy planned millennia ago, waiting for this exact moment. First speaker Lysandra stood beside Wei, watching the tactical display with new understanding. All this time, while we built gardens in space, you were building walls. Not walls, Wei corrected softly. Gateways. What's coming through isn't the real threat. It's just the vanguard. The hungry ones sent their lesser aspects first, testing our defenses. Now they know we remember them. Now they'll send everything. As if summoned by her words, space itself began to tear. Not the small rifts from before, but vast wounds in reality. Through them came shapes that denied comprehension. Beings so vast that entire star systems were merely motes in their shadow. By the first light, Lysandra whispered, "What are they?" "The end of everything," Wei answered. "Unless we stop them here, unless we remember how." The human battle line erupted with impossible energies. The weapons platforms weren't just firing now. They were singing. Frequencies that existed in 11 dimensions resonated through space, creating patterns that the hungry ones couldn't simply devour. Dr. Chen's voice came through the command channel. Quantum harmonics engage. Beginning synchronized attack. The human fortresses weren't fighting alone. From their depths emerged swarms of smaller craft, ships that had been called drones in the old records, but were something far more sophisticated now. Each one carried a fragment of the quantum symphony, adding their voices to the greater song. A hungry one reached for a populated system, its non-Euclidean geometry warping space around it. But this time, instead of finding easy prey, it encountered something new. The human drones swarmed around it, their quantum harmonics creating a cage of structured reality. "Now," Wei commanded. The fortresses fired as one. Not with energy or matter, but with something the ancestors had discovered in their darkest hour. They fired with order itself. Beams of pure causality struck the trapped entity, forcing it to exist in just one set of dimensions, just one sequence of cause and effect. The hungry one screamed as it was forced into a single shape, a single moment. For a being that existed in all possible realities simultaneously, being forced to exist in just one was agony. But the victory came at a cost. Creating order in a universe that naturally tended toward chaos required enormous energy. Several human installations went dark, their power cores drained. "We can't maintain this level of output," Sarah reported. "The harmonic matrix is starting to degrade." Wei's fingers flew across her console. "Reroute power from the secondary nodes. Activate the deep reserves." "The reserves?" Lysandra asked. "What reserves?" "Every human world, every colony, every outpost. Beneath them all we built engines, not for power or propulsion, but to generate order, to create islands of stability in a universe that's falling apart." The tactical display showed more rifts opening. The hungry ones weren't just attacking now. They were investing their full attention on the human battle line. Reality itself buckled under the assault. "Why?" Lysandra's voice cracked. "Why did you prepare for this? How did you know?" Wei's eyes never left the display. "Because we remembered. Because someone had to." She paused, watching another fortress go dark. In Earth's ancient history, there were always those who stood watch while others slept. We called them guardians, sentinels, watchers on the walls. When humanity reached the stars, we found a galaxy at peace. And we asked why. A new alert sounded. The largest rift yet was forming. Through it came something that dwarfed even the previous entities. Not just a hungry one, but something older, vaster, perhaps one of the first of their kind. What we found in the oldest ruins, Wei continued, what we pieced together from the quantum echoes of dead civilizations, showed us the truth. This wasn't the first time they had come. This wasn't the first galaxy they had tried to devour. But no one had ever managed to drive them back completely. They always returned, finding the children of peace unprepared. The vast entity began to move toward the heart of Concordat space, toward worlds that had never known war, never built a weapon, never imagined they would need to fight. So we prepared. Wei's voice hardened. We built our fortresses and hid them in plain sight. We maintained our weapons while pretending to be simple traders and diplomats. We kept the old knowledge alive, passed down from generation to generation, because someone had to remember. Someone had to be ready. She turned to Lysandra, her eyes reflecting the light of dying stars. Your people called us primitive because we never forgot how to fight. But we never forgot because we knew this day would come. And now, the entity was close enough now that its true nature became clear. It wasn't just consuming space. It was unmaking the very concepts of existence. Where it passed, not just matter, but the laws of physics themselves ceased to be. Wei straightened her uniform. Now we show them why humanity never forgot how to wage war. Behind her, the quantum harmonics rose to a crescendo as humanity prepared to make its stand against the end of everything. In the end, it came down to a simple choice: order or chaos, existence or oblivion. The vast entity, the Ancient One, as humanity's archives had named it, towered over the galaxy like a wound in reality. Its presence alone was causing stars to flicker, planets to phase between states of matter, and the fabric of space-time to unravel. In the command center, Wei initiated humanity's final protocol. Execute Phoenix Protocol. Authorization: Earth's last dawn. Across human space, hidden reactors that had slumbered for millennia awakened. They weren't power plants in any conventional sense. They were reality engines designed to enforce order on a universe that was becoming increasingly unstable. All stations reporting ready. Sarah's voice was steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. Quantum synchronization at maximum. The Ancient One reached out with appendages of anti-reality, trying to consume entire star systems. But now, for the first time in its unfathomable existence, it encountered resistance it couldn't simply unmake. Every human installation, every hidden fortress, every secret outpost, they all activated simultaneously. The quantum harmonics that had been holding back the lesser hungry ones now combined into something greater. A symphony of order that rippled through 11 dimensions. By all that exists, Lysandra whispered, watching the display. What are you doing? What we were built for, Wei answered. We're not just fighting them. We're teaching reality how to fight back. The Phoenix Protocol wasn't just a weapon or a defense. It was the culmination of 3,000 years of preparation, the distilled knowledge of how to make the universe itself reject the chaos that the hungry ones represented. The Ancient One recoiled as the wave of enforced order struck it. For a being that existed by unmaking reality, being forced into a single ordered state was like acid on organic flesh. It thrashed, its impossible geometry trying to find a configuration that would allow it to escape. But humanity had learned from the last war. The quantum harmonics weren't just attacking. They were adapting, learning, evolving. Every time the Ancient One tried to shift its form, the symphony changed to counter it. Multiple stations reporting critical power levels. Sarah called out, "The reality engines can't maintain this output much longer." Wei's hands flew across her console. Divert all remaining power to the primary node. Prepare for final convergence. The human battle line began to shift, each fortress moving into precise positions calculated millennia ago. They weren't just creating a wall. They were forming a lens, focusing the combined power of every reality engine into a single point. The Ancient One sensed the threat. It called to its lesser aspects, drawing them in, combining their power. Where before there had been many hungry ones, now there was only one vast entity, a singularity of chaos that threatened to unmake the galaxy itself. Now we find out if our ancestors were right, Wei said softly. She opened a channel to all stations. All units, initiate final convergence. For Earth, for everything. The symphony reached its crescendo. Every reality engine, every quantum harmonic, every stored fragment of order. All of it focused through the lens of humanity's combined fortresses. The beam that emerged wasn't energy or matter or even exotic particles. It was pure causality, the fundamental force of cause and effect. The Ancient One tried to unmake it, tried to deny its existence, but you can't unmake order itself. The beam struck the entity's center, and for a moment, reality held its breath. Then the Ancient One began to change, not being destroyed or unmade, but being forced into a single, stable form. Its infinite possibilities collapsed into one actuality. Its ability to exist in all states simultaneously was stripped away, leaving it bound by the same laws of physics it had tried to devour. The entity's scream echoed through dimensions that had no name, but the human battle line held firm. The quantum harmonics continued their symphony, forcing more and more of reality to remember how to be real. In the assembly chamber, Lysandra watched in awe as the Ancient One's vast form began to crystallize, becoming something that could exist in normal space. You're not destroying it, she realized. You're making it real. Because that's what humanity does, Wei said, her voice tight with concentration. We don't just fight the darkness, we light the way forward. We show the universe how to fight back. The Ancient One's crystallized form began to crack, not from destruction, but from the pressure of existing in a single reality. Pieces of it fell away, each fragment becoming something new, not a threat to existence, but a part of it. As the entity's transformation completed, the lesser hungry ones began to follow suit. The quantum harmonics had shown them a new way to exist, and one by one, they chose order over chaos, reality over unmaking. The battle was over, but the war had changed everything. The Concordat would never be the same. They had seen what lurked beyond their peaceful galaxy, and they had seen what humanity had become to protect them. In the aftermath, as the reality engines powered down, and the fortresses began their long task of healing the wounded fabric of space-time, Wei stood before the assembly one last time. For 3,000 years, we were called primitive because we remembered how to fight, she said to the gathered representatives. But we remembered because someone had to. Because peace isn't just the absence of conflict, it's the presence of guardians. And humanity. She looked out at the stars, now shining steadily in a universe that remembered how to make sense. Humanity stands guard. The shield had held. The watch would continue. And in the deep darkness between galaxies, reality itself had learned a new song, a symphony of order that would echo through eternity, teaching the universe how to resist chaos, one quantum harmonic at a time. The long watch wasn't over. But now, humanity wasn't standing guard alone.